I'm Rachel Horgan. Join me each episode as I sit down with a guest co-host covering the latest business stories in the Seattle area. We'll read the news so you don't have to. This is The Weekly. Okay, hello everybody. I was at a luncheon and somebody asked my why. Why do I do what I do? And who knows? But one thing is that, what drives me is building community and connecting people and making people feel less alone. So that's what I try to do with this podcast. But it's been amazing to that regard. I met another podcaster, Maureen. I want to give her a shout out. She hosts a podcast called It Gets Late Early, and it's about getting older in the tech industry. It's great. I've listened to a handful of episodes. But we got connected through a mutual contact, and we got together. We started talking about things like, the software, the motivation to keep doing this, mental health, social media, all the things. So we've started a club called the Unwell Unemployed Podcasters Who Drink. Members are me and her so far. But I do want to give her a shout out. And also it's just been really nice to kind of have somebody that's going through similar things as you. Anyway, that is that. I'm going to introduce our guest right away because I am here at Visit Seattle in downtown Seattle with Troy Anderson, the Director of Sales.
Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So I think I met your wife first. So your wife basically runs events at T-Mobile Park, and I've done a handful of events there. But you and I have both been speakers at MPI events and some other events. Do you remember when we first met? Because I can't.
It was definitely on the trail of one of our industry associations. Yeah, I'm fondly known in the Seattle area as, Alicia Anderson's husband versus my own name. But yeah, I think we were at one of the MPI. It was not a Cascadia, but it was one of the Hive events.
Yeah, I think I was emceeing and you were speaking or something like that.
Yeah. It could have been one of our Visit Seattle signature events also.
Yes.
Maybe one of the holiday brunches or one of those. Yeah.
Yeah. I know. I like to call you guys the tourism power couple here.
Yeah. She has definitely more power than I do.
Oh, man.
She wouldn't disagree.
So a little bit about you. You've been with Visit Seattle for close to 12 years. And prior to that, you worked in sales at hotels in Vegas, including the Mirage, Treasure Island, and New York, New York. Prior to that, you were a cruise director for Holland America.
Yeah.
And then in the golf industry prior to that. So always in tourism a little bit, always in, hotels, hospitality.
Yeah.
I love it. I do want to spend a minute talking about what Visit Seattle actually is. If you're in the industry, but there's a lot of people that don't. So back in the day, I called it a CVB, which is a Convention and Visitors Bureau. Almost every city has one. If you've ever seen a commercial like come to Walla Walla and come wine tasting or any of that. Yeah. But I've heard recently it's changed to a DMO, Destination Marketing Organization, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And is that because not every city has a convention center?
Well, I think it's because every destination is marketing themselves to become a place that they want you to bring your tourism dollars to.
Yeah.
And that's what they're really doing. They're just promoting their destination as like why you should come spend your money here. Mm-hmm. What do we have that's interesting to see? And so I think the DMO, it sounds a little bit less bureaucratic, and I think it sounds a little bit more sexy.
Yeah.
And I think it kind of explains a little bit more about what everybody does. But I think that is also a good theory. Like not everybody has a convention center.
Yeah. So your job at Visit Seattle and everybody that works here, the goal is to sell conventions big conventions to come in, other kind of conferences, business travel coming in, and then also leisure travel. So somebody on vacation. Is that right? That's the mission here?
Yeah, absolutely. We have three kind of like big wings that go out in what we do. As a Convention Visitors Bureau, to kind of rewind a little bit.
Yeah.
I didn't know what a CVB or DMO was when I first, when I was in the hospitality industry in Las Vegas. I found out about it from their CVB and their authority down there, which is called the LVCVA. And I was thinking about, wanting to work for something where I didn't have to like promote just one brand, but I could promote this incredible destination and like everything that they had to offer. And
you got tired of selling one ballroom, didn't you?
Well, it's tough because I'm much more of a relational seller, and I'm not what you would call like the hard closer guy. If I've got something you want, then I'm more than happy to promote those benefits. And if it's something you want, we can come to a good agreement on it. Then I'm happy to sell it to you. But I did find myself when I was promoting one brand, at any given time, that like it was also my job to sell you on why you should be in that brand and that brand only, regardless if it was a good fit for you. And that kind of didn't like mix well with me. Yeah. So I sat in Las Vegas and I thought about it. And I was like, I wonder if Seattle has something like a CVB or a DMO. And as it turns out, they do. And it turns out everybody does. Mm-hmm. And so I learned about the Seattle CVB and, I was ready to come home. I was born and raised here in the Western Washington. And I was ready to come home and start life in the Pacific Northwest again. And this was a really good opportunity to do so. And so I applied for it and never looked back.
Yeah, it's coming up on 12 years. Well, you sort of answered my question, but is there anything you wanted to add? Because I was asking why you were so passionate about selling Seattle.
Oh, man. I mean, Rachel, look outside right now. We're sitting on the 8th floor here, overlooking the city on a Friday here in May. And it is going to be 75 degrees here, not a cloud in the sky. I can see the Space Needle from my office window. I can see the mountains from my office window. You can go outside and take a deep breath of fresh air. You can hear the seagulls scream. All of these things are things that just bring up nostalgic for me. I grew up in this area. I love this area. I've been all around the world in my travels. I've been fortunate enough to do that. And every time I'm somewhere for more than 3-4 days, I start to miss home. I love talking about coming here. I love talking about bringing people to experience Seattle. And then we have the wing that I work in, which is that meetings and convention side. And the meetings and convention side is important because we book further out. Mm-hmm. So we book groups all the way, 10 years out.
What's the latest you're booking right now?
10 years out, like 2034. Wow. We have a group on the books, They book further out. And as you can imagine, hotels, they have dynamic pricing. So if a hotel has 100 rooms in it and we put group business in there that equal about 30% of that hotel, well, they've only got 70 rooms left. So now the hotel rate goes up because they have less inventory, and that all then generates tax revenues.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I think you're in the right job because I am amped about Seattle now after that. You're doing great about selling it. So let me just go over the top 5 things we're going to be doing today. The first thing we're going to do is, it's not actually an article, but I did want to get an update from Visit Seattle in terms of some numbers and stats. Similar to the DSA, Downtown Seattle Association, you do a lot of research, and there's just a lot of data about how successful Seattle is in terms of tourism, which speaks to how successful we are in terms of business. So the first thing we're going to do is a Visit Seattle update. We'll go into Pot Doughnuts expanding, and I did stop and get my top pot today. I like a good theme. Docusign acquires Lexion. Starbucks misses their mark on the shareholders' expectations, and the ex-CEO weighs in. Drama. And then the 5th one is Redfin settles in a lawsuit. So you ready to get into this?
Let's rock and roll.
Okay. So the first one is a little bit, I have some questions for you. So it's a little bit of your show here. But overall, where are we compared to previous years in terms of group business for Seattle, which I think is indicative of how we're doing.
Yeah, that's a good question. 2019 was our high watermark before, the shall not be named time period that we just recently went through. In 2019, at that point, we had a pretty good hotel inventory going on. Our new Hyatt Regency had just opened, which became the largest hotel north of San Francisco. It still is to this day. We were also at that time actively selling what would then be the future of our convention city, which is that new Summit building, but it wasn't open yet. So that was the high watermark and a real exciting time to be a part of Visit Seattle and selling this city to people. There was some real momentum behind our city. The pandemic really did do some damage to us, but we are actively rebounding now. Our Summit Building convention project was actually deemed as one of those that could keep going during the pandemic and keep getting built. So we still built that thing, and it opened in January of 23, and that building has brought us a lot of attention. We've done a lot to market it. Unfortunately, with the timing of it has hurt our booking window. Typically with association business, which typically makes out about 65 to 70% of our business mix at the convention centers, they typically book out, 6-7 years in advance. We lost that window because of the pandemic. So we're trying to reset from that. The other 30% of the business that we do is the corporate business side of it. And we do that on purpose. The association business books further out. Yeah. They're less volatile. They grow, but they don't grow like a corporate group does. And they're just rock steady, right? They got messed up when the pandemic happened. They had to cancel groups in places that they were going to be in 2020, 2021, 2022 even. They had to rebook those groups that they had to cancel in the future years. So that messed up our window, being able to sell to them, because that would have been prime in our window. So we're just kind of trying to figure out what that looks like now.
But in terms of like compared to previous years, it sounds like we're probably pretty good for 5-6 years out, but maybe right now we're still feeling the effects of the pandemic because of the future bookings. Is that right?
Well, we're still feeling the effects of the pandemic from a booking window lens. Our booking window is a lot more compact than it ever used to be. Like I said, the association business was like 6-7 years. That's been condensed into like 2 or 3 as they start to catch up. Corporate business now plays in the same box as association, which is weird because you're trying to put that puzzle together.
Yeah.
Overall, though, that new building has been nothing short of stunning for us. And I know you've been in it.
Yes, I was, I think, the first or second event in January 23 there.
Yeah. I mean, it has that like new car smell. I think we even did it. We even did a little thing that was like that new convention center smell. And we had like little, the pine trees, car center things. We had those. Yeah, that was fun. But yes, that building is bringing us lots of notoriety from around the country, lots of interest from around the country. We are going to have more groups in the city than we did before when we were a single building user. And that's changed the way that we do business in the city as well.
Yeah, interesting. Do you have any other kind of stats or data that you can share with us to help the audience understand how we're doing from a tourism perspective, whether that's convention business coming in or cruise ship data? What can you share with us?
Yeah, so, cruise ships that are coming in. I mean, obviously, we all know that summer season is cruise ship season. So cruise ships are doing well, alive and well. We're gearing up for that now. In fact, I've already seen cruise ships in our harbor, which is amazing. Yeah. And we're already starting to see those passengers in downtown. We're expecting about 1.7 million cruise ship passengers, which is about on par for what we had in the last year. Okay. And we're looking at about 277 scheduled sailings from different things. 277, wow. Yeah. Okay. So 277 massive cruise ships coming in here. And the variables keep changing. So like there's bigger boats now, or ships, I should call them. I'm a cruise guy, I should know that. There's bigger ships now. And we're also seeing that the cruise lines are diversifying the offerings that they're bringing. Sure, there's going to be those weekend 7-day turn cruises that you can do to Alaska. But now I think they're starting to offer like 3-week itineraries. They're like 21 days long to give people a different perspective of Alaska and stuff too. So. Yeah.
Awesome. There's one more question, then we got to get into the news. But FIFA is coming. If you didn't know, FIFA, the Men's World Cup soccer, is coming to Seattle. We won that bid. It's for 2025, right? 2026. Yeah. My bad.
June and July 26.
June and July 2026, which is...
Please don't be in 25.
I was going to say, like, to this industry, that's like right away.
Yeah. It's tomorrow.
But I guess briefly, how do you think that's going to impact people here and businesses here and also people here in Seattle?
What I can say is buckle up and get ready. We went through a pretty arduous process of getting FIFA here and showing what our city capabilities were. FIFA is going to bring a whole new level of tourism to Seattle. And we were asking FIFA when we were talking about this. We were like, what are we talking here? Are we talking like a Super Bowl? Are we talking like, what kind of level are we on? And they're like, yeah, Super Bowl. But it's going to be Super Bowl every single game that's played.
Oh, my gosh.
And so we got 6 matches.
Wow.
6. So we're going to be hosting the equivalent of 6 Super Bowls over the course of that, 3.5 week, 4-week period.
Wow.
That's insanity. In summertime, when it's already our busiest time for leisure, we are going to get tourism, I anticipate. I obviously can't say because it hasn't happened yet, but I feel that we are going to get tourists from parts of the world that we've never gotten tourists from before. Yeah. At a greater scale. You're going to see the streets activated in a different way. This is a massive win. And especially since we got one of the U.S. team games. Yeah. That's just going to be
madness.
Incredible. Yeah. And this is going to be shown on a global level that's larger than the Super Bowl audience.
Yeah, I know. I was talking to a friend who works at a restaurant, and they said that they were starting renovations for their patio, and they want to make sure it's done before FIFA comes in. And I've heard from other businesses making changes for FIFA coming in. So if you're listening and you need to make any changes to your business or retail or whatever it is, do that now so you're ready for 2026.
Yeah, we're anticipating that hotels will be sold out all the way down to as far down as Olympia. The airport's going to be jammed out. Bellevue's going to be jammed out. There's going to be a lot of people coming just with interest.
Start now to figure out how to Airbnb your place if you want to make a bunch of money. If you're not interested in soccer.
I'm not here to advocate for that. I mean, I definitely want to see our hotels get used up.
That's true. Okay, let's get into the news. So our story about Top Pot. They are leasing a new warehouse space in Kent, moving in this summer, allowing for more than double of its production capacity. So their current facility is in Tukwila. This is just a larger space. The article mentions that it's a rectangular shape, so it'll allow for more linear flow, which is interesting. I would want to see like what that looks like with making a donut. But
yeah, it brings me back to my operations class days at University of Washington.
That's true.
Yeah.
They also, in this article, are saying that they're returning to West Seattle. So if you're in West Seattle and been craving a donut, it's happening. I guess they closed their Alki Beach store 3 years ago, and this is going to be their first new store in 5 years, actually. And they do plan to open more. In terms of their size, they currently have 16 locations with 200 employees. And the background on that, it was established, I don't know if you know this, but it was established in 2002 by brothers Michael and Mark Klebeck. And their first store was on Capitol Hill.
Yeah.
Fun fact. The other fun fact that I researched, this is not in the article, but the name Top Pot came because there was a vintage neon sign that was above a boarded up Chinese restaurant called Top Spot. The co-founders bought the sign, and while transporting it, the S fell off. And so then it just said Top Pot.
I love it.
And so they suggested that they replace it with like a coffee pot thing. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I don't know if you knew that.
I think that's a great story. Yeah. It's funny. I left Seattle for the first time in 2002. So I never knew about Top Pot Donuts. And then when I came home back in 2012, at the end of 2012, like Top Pot was a big deal, you know, and, shout out to Top Pot. I love your apple fritters. One of my favorites in the world.
Yeah.
But they have done such a good job of branding themselves as this. I love in the article that we talked about, they're hand forged donuts. Like you're thinking like iron workers pounding out metal. Like these donuts are awesome.
Yeah,
I love it.
They're good. I've got one today.
Yeah.
I also saw that from a financial perspective, when I Googled, I could find that it was between 12 cents and 20 cents per donut to make. And then they profit off that. I'd be curious to know. I have a friend who was looking at increasing her production facility, and the demand is there. Like I imagine the demand is there for donuts, but I wonder how much it costs to change this space to Kent and how they got their funding and what kind of the behind the scenes of that. So I don't have answers on that, but that's just kind of where my mind went. But for you, in terms of food and beverage, what kind of role does food and beverage play in selling Seattle? Do you buy everybody a Top Hot donut as soon as they come on their site visit?
Are they a sponsor? Am I supposed to say yes?
No, they should be.
Okay, yeah, they should be, right? Sponsor Rachel, Top Hot. Food and beverage is a massive deal whenever you're selling a destination. And it's part of the vibe and the culture of the city that we're trying to present as a place that they can bring and trust to bring their thousands of delegates to. So, Top Pot's certainly a part of that story. We try and do client entertaining and showing the best ways that we can have customers come into the city and really enjoy our city and get lack of a better phrase, a taste of what we can offer. You know what I did there?
I did. I saw that.
We love to share the stories of local homegrown businesses like Top Pot for sure is part of telling the story. Being able to tell about different cultural types of food that people can go out and eat. Talk about James Beard award-winning chefs. Talk about our local celebrity chefs. Trying to get them all in front of the customer's eyes the best way we possibly can. Sometimes that means we're going and experiencing their restaurants, whether they're here for a site or a planning visit, or just letting them know that like, hey, you're going to be in the downtown core with your 4,000 people convention. Here are a listing of all the restaurants that we have available for you within a walking distance. Yeah. And that's another thing. Seattle's like one of the most walkable cities in the country. It's this wonderful place that you can walk out the door of your hotel and you can find any number of great restaurants to go and eat at. So food and beverage plays a huge part.
Yeah. I'm sure it plays a big part in selling Seattle. Yeah. Okay, our next story is Docusign acquires Lexion. So Docusign is actually a San Francisco-based company. I keep forgetting this because they have such a huge presence in the Wells Fargo building here in Seattle, and I feel like a lot of my friends work for them.
Same. Right? Probably have the same.
Yeah. So Docusign paid $165 million for this company, Lexion, which is a Seattle-based AI contract management company. What I thought was interesting about this is that I saw that Lexion raised $36 million since its founding. So they raised $36 million to get this company off the ground. I don't know. I don't have a date of when they were founded. And then they sold for 165 million. So that feels like a pretty good turnaround.
Pretty good return on investment.
Yeah.
Not doing too shabby.
This is good for Seattle because there are quite a few Seattle VC firms. Did you find it?
2018 is when Lexion got their start.
That feels like a fast turnaround.
So we're 6 years out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Good job
Yeah,
to them.
pretty good.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of VC firms in Seattle that backed this company, and it's good for them because now they get some of that money back. They can invest in other companies. It's a good thing for Seattle. Something else that I think is interesting. So the Lexion CEO and co-founder, there's 3 co-founders for Lexion, and they all 3 are going to be moving over to Docusign or whatever they're going to be calling that division. One's going to be a VP of product management. The other will be a VP of engineering, and the third will be a principal engineer. The reason why I bring this up is because if you remember from 2 episodes ago, we were talking about NanoString and how they got bought by this massive company. I saw that the CEO and CFO, as soon as that transaction went through, were terminated. I don't know what the actual conversation was, but that is kind of a risk that happens when you do sell your company, is that they don't need a CFO because they have one. So you either are terminated, or in this case with Lexion, their positions changed from CEO to VP of product management or something like that.
Yeah.
Other things in this article is that Lexion spun out of the Allen Institute for AI. So we like to see that happening. And then just kind of big picture, in the first quarter, there were 55 AI-related VC backup startups acquired, up from 38 the previous quarter. So what that tells me is that, to no surprise, bigger companies are acquiring smaller AI companies, and that's just continuing to grow. For you, let's talk about how Seattle's gained its tech reputation over the years, and how does that kind of compete with San Francisco? Are you seeing a lot of people coming in to have tech conferences and conventions here?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I alluded to earlier about how we do about 30% corporate business. The first quarter for us is a big SKO, sales kickoff time frame for groups to come in here, and a lot of the corporate groups that we get are tech companies. We're a tech hub here in Seattle. We're a big time STEM city here in Seattle. So a lot of those firms that are headquartered down in the Silicon Valley and San Francisco area, San Jose area, they come up here. They have secondary offices here. I mean, look at Meta, look at Google. They're all headquartered down there in the Silicon Valley, but they come up here, and we do groups with them a lot of the time. They choose Seattle for a variety of different reasons. Availability, it could be pricing, but I think a lot of it has to do with our culture of tech here. And that's one of the good things about the tech boom here.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on this article or tech conventions in general?
I love my tech conventions. That summit building that was built there was built with the advocacy of and the consultancy of a lot of our tech friends. Okay. We asked them, like, what do you want to see in your future convention center? And they gave us things that they wanted to see that were implemented: larger lobbies, places that weren't inside the ballrooms that you could go still have a quick meeting or take a call or whatnot. It's that hill climb staircase in the summit building. Those stairs are great little spots for people to sit in, like little groups of 10, and they all have charge ports and all of those different things. Those all come from the consultancy of like what our tech companies and our tech customers are telling us they want here.
Cool. Okay. Our fourth story is Starbucks. This was a story. I could have done it for the last episode, but I'm kind of glad I waited because we've got the ex-CEO that weighed in on it. So basically, Starbucks shares dropped significantly. They missed the expectations of their earnings report. Things aren't going well. Then the ex-CEO, Howard Schultz, has some thoughts on this, and he writes this long LinkedIn post about what he thinks needs to get done. Overall, kind of sort of the nuggets in there were that he thinks that they need to change their go-to-market strategy, which basically means their plan to convince people to buy their stuff. And then also making changes to their mobile ordering and kind of spending more time with the workers. So we'll kind of dive into our opinions on that. But a little bit more background is that, so Howard was the CEO from 1986 to 2000, and then again from 2008 to 2017. And then he was the interim CEO from 2022 to 2023. And he's had no formal role since about a year ago from when he stepped down in 2023. So he's not on the board. He's not employed, but he has kind of been the CEO and stepped back and the CEO and stepped back. So I don't totally blame him for wanting to weigh in. I think it's interesting because Don't you think he maybe should have just like emailed them directly and been like, "Hey, man, this is what you should be doing"?
Maybe he did.
That's true. Maybe
he did. I don't know. Howard, for Mr. Schultz, it's hard. That's his baby.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's hard when you're passionate about something the way that he has been about the Starbucks brand. And, he's shown it here in Seattle and how he's grown it. I mean, like, it's hard to disagree with him when he's built the empire, right?
Yeah.
I don't disagree with the guy. The guy's a genius.
Yeah.
So coffee's what they do. I know they're a beverage company, right? They're not just a coffee company. They're a beverage company. But I love the idea of getting in on the ground floor with your frontline level employees to see, because that's the interaction with the customer, right? That's where the revenue comes in the door. So to get more in tune with what's going on that front level line employee, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I don't disagree with some of the things he was saying. It kind of brings up like shifting from what was called a third place. They coined this term. If you're not familiar, you have your work is one place, your home is another place, and Starbucks really wanted to be this third place that you go to gather and hang out and be with friends. I think that we've really moved from that kind of environment and that kind of experience to more of a grab and go, more of a transactional, come in, get your things, leave. We've got the mobile ordering, which sure, it was helpful, but it also changed that whole experience of coming into a Starbucks. And so I think that's sort of part of what he's bringing up is like, how can we change that? There's 31% of orders are made up from the app. So yeah, I don't disagree with some of his things. I just think it's an interesting route to go of leaving a company and then posting on LinkedIn about it feels like you're like watching an ex and then
well, 100%. Like, are you in or are you out? Right.
Yeah.
Like, I get it. It's hard because, man, when you've been so involved and so dedicated to that and like you're out and then all of a sudden you're like, oh no, I don't like how this is being run.
Yeah.
I'm coming back to save the day.
I know.
But he ultimately, maybe I'm wrong on this, but ultimately he's got the vision, right?
Yeah.
Like he's got the vision of what he wants to do with the Mermaid brand. Like he knows. I still see it as both the third place and then also the to-go transactions. The third place, I still go down to a Starbucks, right down the street from us. And I'm still seeing the people that are there at noon, typing away on their computers, working away. So they're using it for that home thing. I use it in my personal life. We use the local Starbucks as a little hangout for baseball coaches. We get together and we meet there because everyone's got their own coffee order. But I also think that like in order to boost revenues, you have to also play off that to-go business too. That's what, if people are hanging out, then they're buying their coffee and maybe their pastry or their egg bites or whatever they're having there while they're working. But are they buying multiples? No. So how do you drive more revenue at that point? You got people that are staying in the restaurant, hanging out, doing their initial order, but are they buying additional beverages or additional food? I don't know.
I know, but it's annoying when I go in to order and I'm the only one there and then I have to wait forever because there's 12 mobile orders that they're making first. So
that's true. But the good news is that you're never too far away from another Starbucks. They have like restaurants on every corner.
Did Howard send you?
No, he did not. I've never met the guy. I do have respect for him for the empire that he's built around a cup of coffee.
I liked there was something in the article that I guess they'd asked like the current Starbucks team, like what they thought. And they're like, we always appreciate Howard's thoughts.
Yeah.
Which I was like, I couldn't tell how they were meaning that. I was like, they're there, Howard. Thank you.
Think about what he's done though. He's taken that brand and he's built like these legions of fans. They're not coffee drinkers. They're fans. There's people that come to Seattle to see the original Starbucks store so they can buy the tumbler that comes from that store only.
Okay, our last story is that Redfin owes $9.25 million in a class action lawsuit. This is part of a much bigger story, so it's sort of why I wanted to pull this article in, is just to talk about the National Association of Realtors, NAR. Yeah. It was a $408 million lawsuit total, so lots of other companies are having to pay this. NAR, I think, is having to pay some of it. So the 9.25 is just like a portion, so we're not mad at Redfin.
Yeah. They settled. They weren't found guilty.
Yes. So I looked into this, and admittedly, I am not a homeowner. I have no experience in this, so you might need to jump in a little bit more on this one. But what I could gather is that basically when you're selling a house, the buyer has an agent and the seller has an agent. So when the transaction goes through, the seller actually pays the buyer's agent. Mm-hmm. So what this lawsuit is saying is that there was a set commission rate for both the buyer and the seller's commission. And so you couldn't like negotiate that. It was just already set.
Yep.
And then sometimes that wasn't really even really clear what that amount was. So basically, if I'm a buyer's agent and I can see on the MLS, and they can't, but I can see that their commission on this one is 6%, the commission over here is 3%. I might only show, the home buyer is this one because I want the bigger commission.
Yeah.
So the lawsuit was saying that's not fair. You need to be transparent about that, et cetera. Is that your gathering of what happened?
Yeah, somewhat. I mean, I'm not too well versed on the idea, but yes, my mother was a real estate agent for her entire career. So she was a lifelong real estate agent and did very well. The landscape has changed, certainly. Again, we point to yet another great Seattle-based innovative company named Redfin that helped drive that, and another Seattle-based company, Zillow, that helps drive this change, where I can do my real estate shopping from my living room. Back in the day, my mom was trucking people around town, in the back of her own car to show them 20 houses. When I bought my first house here in Seattle, we went and saw a ton of houses. My real estate agent worked, they put the work in, and earn that 2.5-3% commission, whatever she got. But, more and more with this technology updates and all that kind of stuff, I can go and find a property that I'm interested in. And I do think there needs to be some negotiation when I only need my real estate agent. If I find a property I like using a Redfin technology or using a Zillow technology, I don't think that my real estate agent at that point should get to collect 2.5%, right?
Yeah.
Really, I think it should come down to taking that 2.5%, negotiating a fee. Hey, you still need to write an offer for me. You still need to help me do closing paperwork, all that kind of stuff. So we'll do a fee for that. But you didn't show me 16 different houses or, give me suggestions. I found the house I wanted to buy or the property I wanted to buy using this platform. You really didn't earn it. So, and then have that part of the 2.5% come off the price tag and make maybe the house is more affordable.
Yeah.
That's how I'd like to see it happen. But
yeah, I think it's creating more flexibility for how involved the agent actually is. It's creating more transparency. I think that kickbacks and commissions are not a new thing, and they're not specific to the housing market. So I'm liking that there's a lot more transparency here.
The transparency is good, and a good real estate agent is worth their value. I mean, they're the ones that can say, "Hey, I know you like this property, but here are several things that you should take a look at that you're going to be really concerned about." Maybe they have an eye for things like foundation cracks, or hey, this roof is going to start leaking.
No, they definitely. I mean,
they just have the experience, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And so a good real estate agent, but it depends on how you use them. Right. If you're going to use them to their full capabilities, they should be paid fully. If you're not going to, then at that point.
Yeah. I also want to shout out Redfin. I was doing a little research on them. They're a typical three guys in a garage with some computers.
Disruptors.
Yep. Starting a company. And then they brought in Glenn as their CEO. So he was the fourth guy, all working again out of this garage. And then eventually they go public in 2017. So
change the game.
It's really cool. I was reading a little bit more about Glenn and that he was going to go back to med school and actually sent in his acceptance and then had to retrieve it and pull it back because he was going to keep working with Redfin. And so, yeah, a little interesting story on that, but a cool Seattle company. Well, cool. Well, those are all the news stories I have for you this week. Is there anything you want the audience to know about tourism? Anything you want to plug?
Yeah, I think it's not hard to plug Seattle as a destination in itself. I mean, obviously, we want you to come here. If you live here, great. Enjoy this place that you get the privilege of living in. It is one of the most incredible corners of the world that you'll ever get to experience. For those of you who haven't visited before, we encourage you to visit. For all of my locals, I do want to say that we would love it if you joined us in the idea that we want to have tourism as a shared community value. We're all affected by tourism for the ones that live here, whether you know it or you don't know it. It's when you see people walking down the street with a convention badge on them, and they are eating in our restaurants, and they're staying in our hotels, and they're going whale watching, and they're doing all the things and enjoying the destination that you get to enjoy every day. They're also leaving their tax dollars here, and those are tax dollars that don't come out of your pocket. So that shared community value of tourism, when you see a tourist here, be friendly, look him in the eye, Ask them how their day is going. If they need help finding anything, be hospitable, because we rely on those dollars to make us a more economic and prosperous place to be.
Awesome. And then this episode comes out on Sunday, which is Mother's Day. So I do need to give a shout out to my mom, Catherine Horgan. Thank you so much for supporting me and driving me to soccer practice for a decade of your life. She listens to every episode. So thank you, Mom. Happy Mother's Day. And thank you, Troy, for being here.
Yeah, thanks, Mom. Happy Mother's Day. I love you.
All right. We'll see you next time.
Have a good one. Thanks for having me.
This has been The Weekly. Make sure to check back next Sunday for the latest local business news. We love listener feedback, so if you have any story suggestions, comments, or complaints, email us at theweeklyseattle@gmail.com. We'll see you next time.